All right. First pairing here, going back to Houston. We've got Jake's ever budding romance here with Tank Dell at wide receiver 28 or Mr. Calvin Ridley at wide receiver 32. Jake, I'm going to start with you here. I know this is your team, Eric, but Jake has just professed his love about Tank Dell all season long. So I want to get his viewpoint here first.
First of all, weirdly, I didn't expect these guys to be this close in points per game. I really did not. I thought that Calvin Ridley would have, with his boom games recently, surpassed this level and been closer to at least a wide receiver 2. And that's not the case. And because that's not the case, that is ultimately more terrifying for Calvin Ridley to say, even with those explosive games, here he is sitting at wide receiver 32. And Christian Kirk is not going away. I feel validated finally in my love for Christian Kirk that I was professing in this offseason. Didn't feel that way initially, I got to say. But I do think that Christian Kirk is the safe guy. Calvin Ridley is the Amari Cooper-esque, ride the wave and just hope that you get him on the right game type of thing. With Tank Dell, yes, not every game has been amazing. And Noah Brown came back and got a few targets. And I don't care. I want Tank Dell because every time he gets the ball, he looks so electric. And it feels like the team has realized that to a large extent. Nico Collins is still the guy, but I do want Tank Dell in my lineup more consistently than Calvin Ridley.
Mm-hmm. Eric?
I care deeply about Noah Brown returning to the point where I think it's just enough to take the wind out of the Tank Dell sails. If you look at his game log over the early part of the season, it wasn't until Noah Brown went on IR that we really saw his routes, his snaps, and following his receptions and yardage start to tick up. He obviously has played very much so well enough to earn the starting role, but I do think we're going to see him cede an incremental amount of work to Noah Brown now that they are both healthy, presuming that Tank Dell comes back after the bye week as he's out with a concussion, right? So it's kind of a cop-out argument, but I think I'm going to go with Calvin Ridley here because I'm not sure that Tank Dell's best days are ahead of him this season, right? Like I think those couple of boom weeks we saw in weeks 2 and weeks 3, that was when he had that slot role all to himself. And even if he's just giving up a couple of routes, couple of catches here, that's enough to to kind of knock him down towards like the back end of that wide receiver 3 radar. Your point's spot on, Jake. Like Calvin Ridley is basically Christian Watson South, right? Like you're going to have these crazy spike weeks and you're going to win by 40 points and it's going to be super fun. And then he's going to, get shadowed by AJ Terrell and do nothing. So like, riding the wave is part of what makes this fun. But all told, I think we're looking at a greater sum of fantasy points from Calvin Ridley from this point forward.
I never thought I'd live to see the day where I had to fight an actual Texans fan about Tank Dell, but here we are.
Don't you guys remember week 1 when Calvin Ridley was declared the best wide receiver in the league, right? All the victory lapping.
Oh, I remember. Jake, I'm going to lean with you ever so slightly. It's pretty close, but I'm going to lean with the Tank Dell here rest of the season. I love what this young offense is doing. As we talked about CJ Stroud, we're all on board with him. He's going to continue to chuck the rock around, do his thing. I love Calvin Ridley, don't get me wrong, but with this Jags offense, Trevor has no problem just spreading the ball around to whoever is open. He's not going to force feed it to one specific wide receiver, except for Calvin Ridley in week 1. I think that was to make a point to be like, yes, he is still good. He can do Calvin Ridley things. He hasn't played in almost 2 years. Let's force feed him. But ever since then, he's been taking the matchups and whoever it comes. We've seen Ingram have his games. Zay Jones has had his games. Christian Kirk. So I mean, he's going to take the matchup. So that's why I just can't trust Calvin Ridley. Where Tank Dell, they're going to be playing from behind pretty much every single week there in Houston. And with Stroud,
no offense,
I like him throwing it around. And So yeah, that's my take on that.